welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology and also with some tropical insights. I focus on both natal and relationship astrology, and if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, click on the notifications bell to see when I will post a new video, and also comment in the comment section with anything you would like to share about this topic or questions you might have or ideas for future topics that you would like me to cover. Also, if you're interested in a private reading, I do readings on a wide variety of topics with respect to astrology, but I also do tarot readings. So if you are interested in finding out more about a reading, you can email me at the email address in the video description. Also, I have started memberships on this channel. You can find more details if you click the join button under this video or any videos on my channel that I have posted. But also very briefly, I can tell you that the membership options basically entail one extra video that is members only per each membership level. And at each level, you have access to the previous level. So basically level 1, which is Stargazer, has access to one extra members only video per month. Level 2, which is Astro-Hitchhiker, has access to 2 extra videos per month from Stargazer and Astro-Hitchhiker. And finally, the Galaxy Explorer has access to 3 extra members-only videos per month, which are all the previous videos. So the one for Stargazer, for Astro-Hitchhiker, and also one that is exclusively for the Galaxy Explorer membership level. And also with time, if I get more requests and I get more members, I might be posting even more often than just 1 extra video per month for each level. And also, if you want to find out more about the prices for each level, of course, you can click on the join button because the price will show according to your location. So depending on what your local currency is. All right. And also, if you are interested in tarot, last but not least, I also have a tarot channel and I will be linking it in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. And yeah, you might want to check it out, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. All right. So that being said, let me get into the topic of today's video, which is Mars in the 5th house. I will be linking the full playlist of what I have covered so far in this topic of Mars through houses, but this is going to be the general description for Mars in the 5th house. How does it impact you with respect to the natal chart? And also potentially when you look at it from the Chandra Lagna or the moon sign as well. You can apply it to some extent, especially when it comes to your inner landscape, your inner philosophy, and what makes you happy. That's what the Chandra Lagna shows. And this could be particularly important if in your horoscope, the moon sign is in a lower degree than the ascendant sign. So for instance, if you have, let's say, moon in Aries 5 degrees and you have ascendant in Aries 26 degrees, that basically means the moon is in a lower degree. But this actually is irrespective of sign, actually. So it doesn't matter what sign they are in, just as long as the degree of the moon is lower than the degree of the ascendant. This could mean that the moon as the ascendant could actually impact your life more than the ascendant. All right, so that being said, Mars in the 5th house. All right, so what does 5th house stand for? The 5th house is many things. It is the house of childhood. It is generally connected to children. It is also why the 5th house corresponds naturally to the sign of Leo, which is ruled by the sun, which also has to do with children, creativity, passion, the heart chakra, love, self-love, any kind of love, really. And yeah, joy, vitality, and all that stuff, right? Mainly 5th house when it comes to artistic expression. I mean, 5th house does rule any kind of creative expression, really, but it particularly rules things like dramatic arts and yeah, also, but it can be creativity basically applied to any field, really, because creativity can be something that can be applied basically to anything. Yeah, but 5th house is especially connected to dramatic arts, you know, using your body, your physical expressions, to express emotions, to play a character, stuff like that. And drama, right? Everything to do with drama. So Mars in the 5th house means a lot of things. This is actually not the best placement. Again, it will vary to a large extent on the individual horoscope because a lot of other factors can influence this. So again, I am talking about very general descriptions here because a lot of things will vary on how strong Mars is in your horoscope, what other aspects are on it, what your ascendant sign is, to see whether Mars is favorable, unfavorable, what house does it rule. And I will be getting more into detail with respect to this when I get into Mars through the 5th house for all ascendants in future videos. But for now, I'm going to stick to the general description. So generally, Mars in the 5th house actually is not great for your childhood because the 5th house does rule your childhood. It rules your education to some extent as well, up until, let's say, master's degree, or graduate school, maybe even including, right? But it stops there at the border between college and graduate, or between, the college and the master's program, right? But it also shows your childhood and the way that you experience your childhood. So Mars here can show, for instance, and I've seen this a lot, can show situations with bullying, not really feeling like you are totally fitting in or that you are really accepted. Again, a lot of this does depend on what else is going on. If you will have like benefics overlooking Mars, or in the 5th house, or aspect in the 5th house, like Jupiter, maybe Venus, this will greatly change the situation, right? So it will be more positive. Sorry about that. But even if you have other positive aspects in this situation, it will still be quite challenging. So Mars in the 5th house can, like I said, show a lot of difficulty fitting in because Mars is a very kind of warrior sort of energy. So it's not exactly the team player kind of energy here. Again, a lot of this depends, I have to mention this, on other factors, because every time I do one of these videos, I have a lot of people saying, well, I don't identify with this at all, or like whatever, and then they proceed to describe their entire horoscopes. Again, this is not a personal reading. This is the general description for this particular planet. And of course, you could have more powerful aspects that overshadow this, to different effects. And of course, you also have to look at what's going on in the Navamsa with Mars, especially if you are past the age of 30 and or if you are married, because that's when the Navamsa becomes more active. And so back to Mars, right? So it can show kind of a childhood of feeling ostracized or maybe bullied or, maybe even vilified to some extent because Mars is a malefic, right? I have seen this happen actually with multiple people, some people that I've even met in person, where they were scapegoated, for instance, with this placement. Either they had like narcissistic parents, or sometimes they were scapegoated at school. They had teachers who didn't trust them or kids who didn't trust them. So it does tend to show something quite difficult with respect to that early childhood environment. When it comes to education, also, this could show that you are not particularly drawn to an academic environment because, again, will depend, I always mention this, a lot on signs and nakshatras and all this, but Mars is generally a very kind of hands-on sort of energy, so it's not particularly keen on spending a lot of time in, a university setting, or spending long periods of time being inactive and just sitting there at home and taking in a lot of information, So Mars is a lot more focused towards practicality. When it comes to actual study subjects, you could be doing well in things that are very logical, so mathematics maybe, but particularly things that are of practical application. So, I don't know, carpentry, physical athleticism could definitely be a big one. Like, I've seen a lot of people who, with this placement, who are very focused on sculpting their bodies, getting in shape, trying different kinds of sports. Because again, Mars is very focused on the physical body, and the fifth house is about, on the one hand, it's about educating yourself, and on the other hand, it's about what you love. The fifth house is your heart chakra, and it's connected to what you love, your hobbies, the things you do for fun, right? So with Mars here, it definitely can show that you love to be physically active, that you love to go to the gym maybe, or there are certain sports that you will like. Again, actually with sports, this can tend to not show a team player. So even if you go for sports, there are probably going to be things where that are not focused on teams. I don't know. There are loads of sports like that. Figure skating, running, I don't know, a bunch of them. I'm not very good at sports, so I can't, list too many of them. Swimming, but you know what I mean. Stuff that is competitive, that doesn't require teamwork, really. And also with Mars, I would not say that Mars in the fifth tends to show abuse from parents so much. I haven't seen this as much, really. But what you can see is that the parents don't protect the child. So it's more often showing situations like bullying or, again, being demonized by a teacher or something like that, having problems in the academic environment, and the parents kind of not being, not being particularly protective of the child, or not being hands-on when it comes to defending the child from the world. So there could be this, hurt connected to early childhood where they felt neglected by their parents, or they felt that the parents left them on their own for long periods of time, But Mars is very much kind of a survivor sort of energy, so there are pluses to the situation, definitely. Like, these people can be very tough. And they actually love challenges also, because Mars is about challenges. It's about overcoming stuff, obstacles, This is probably also why they are drawn to athleticism. They're drawn to sports a lot of the times. And certainly if you have an aspect from Saturn here, or an aspect between Saturn and Mars, you can see people who actually go into a sports career. But again, a lot of other things would have to be checked for that. All right, so this is with respect to the general. And last but not least, of course, Mars shows where you put your efforts in, what you put your efforts in life, what drives you, what, like, what makes you get up in the morning out of bed. And the fifth house is all the things that I mentioned so far. So having Mars in the fifth house could show a very strong drive towards creativity. You might be very driven to express yourself creatively. You might be also very stimulated by romantic relationships, not so much marriage, but romantic relationships, passions. It can also be a very passionate sort of energy, because the fifth house is about desires. It's about romance, sugar, spice, and everything nice. So it can show, let's say, a lot of love affairs as well. Unfortunately, all right, I don't want to say this like as if it's something that's going to happen to everyone, but I have seen this with quite a few people, where they have actually people of both genders, that they tend to attract abuse of a sexual nature. I don't know if this is really, I would have to do more research on this topic, so I don't know if it's directly connected to the Mars in the fifth house, or maybe there's some other thing going on in their horoscopes that I didn't pick up on. But it would sort of make sense, because again, the fifth house is about romantic affairs, and Mars is a very aggressive, kind of violent energy. So, yeah, it is also one of the placements that makes a person very passionate. So it can also be that just by virtue of them being more impulsive and tending to throw themselves headfirst into romances, that maybe they sometimes just don't spot the red flags, in a relationship, and end up maybe with abusive partners. But again, I would have to research more. And again, I'm trying not to look at this fatalistically. If you do have this position in your horoscope, it just means you should exercise some caution and control your impulsivity with respect to dating and romance. All right. Mars from the fifth house. Again, I will mention this. Every planet, well, not every planet, but there are a few specific planets in Vedic astrology that cast so-called special aspects or single-sided aspects. So Mars from the fifth house will aspect the fourth house from itself, which is the eighth house of the horoscope. And this shows that this position makes a person wanting to conquer transformation, wanting to conquer psychology, for instance. The eighth house is everything that has to do with transformation, and it also has to do with things like the occult, for instance. So eighth house can even be connected to things like astrology, tarot, Wicca, everything that is maybe paranormal activities or something like that. So Mars in the fifth house shows that there's a very strong drive for the native to, conquer these fields, also wanting to manage other people's finance, maybe. So these are people that could actually make money from others quite easily, gaining investments, managing other people's money. They could even be drawn towards speculative business or, working in banking, investments, stuff like that. And eighth house is also about death and any kind of transformation. So yes, again, these are people who like to get to the bottom of things. They're not afraid to take risks. And they might be particularly drawn to psychology or any kind of research, but again, a lot of that would depend on what else is going on in the horoscope. But with Mars aspecting the eighth house, there's definitely a desire to understand, let's say, the human psyche. All right. Also, last but not least, on a more less than happier note, it could show conflicts with the in-laws. Especially if this placement shows up in the Navamsa as well, Mars in the fifth house in the Navamsa, because the eighth house is the house of in-laws, right? Yeah, okay. And also, another way to look at it, regardless of, not regardless, especially when you have this placement in the D1 chart with respect to the Lagna, or maybe to the moon, to some extent. I wouldn't be sure about the moon, but especially towards the Lagna, when you have Mars aspecting the eighth, this could show that your romantic partner, your spouse, is going to have Mars-like facial features. So this means small eyes, a strong jawline, an oval face, nice teeth, and a pretty intense sort of demeanor, pretty much overall. Not demeanor, but like, physical traits that suggest intensity. All right. And also, dark features as well. Like maybe dark eyes, dark complexion, dark hair. But again, a lot of this will depend on, of course, what other aspects are happening there. So Mars aspects also aspects the seventh house from itself, which is the 11th house. This also shows that there will be potentially kind of a love and hate relationship with audiences, with large audiences, also with friendships, friends, and elder siblings. So you could have situations where you may have a lot of conflicts with your elder siblings, and you may have sudden conflicts and breaks in relationships to elder siblings and friends and random acquaintances as well. But you can also, have a strong desire simultaneously to conquer large audiences, to maybe to show yourself to large audiences. That would also go in line with Mars being in the fifth house, which is kind of a house of, creativity, of drawing attention towards yourself, stuff like that. So there is that desire to contact, large audiences and maybe being drawn to humanitarian causes as well. All right. And then Mars also aspects the eighth house from itself. So that's the 12th house, which is the house of isolation. It's the house of, again, psychic abilities, bedroom pleasures, hidden affairs. It's also the house of losses financially and otherwise. And last but not least, it's also the house of the subconscious. And it's also the house of foreign travels, especially very far away travels, like different continents. So Mars aspecting the 8th from itself, this basically, and the 8th from itself being the 12th house, this can show that when you travel to faraway places, for instance, you will suffer some very strong transformation with respect to your, maybe towards your likes and dislikes, and also towards maybe the relationship to your children, and also maybe your ability to learn. So you might find out that, let's say, you are having a hard time focusing on academics when you are in your home country, but if you move to a foreign land, you might suddenly discover that you're actually drawn to academia and that you would want to get a college degree, for instance. Also, you might suffer transformations when it comes to, your spiritual practices. So somehow your spiritual practices could transform your ability to learn, for instance, your ability to, also your relationship to children, and also maybe your relationship to investments. So another thing also, I'm kind of like thinking about all the potential interpretations of this. And yeah, the 12th house is also about religious beliefs. It's also about faith. So having a faith in a higher power can help calm down your mind and make you less angry, for instance. With this Mars placement, there is a tendency of, let's say, above average of being angry, especially when it happens in the Navamsa, and especially when it happens by comparison to the Chandra Lagna. Because the Chandra Lagna is more revealing when it comes to your inner landscape and your mind and your basic personality. So yeah, meditation, faith, maybe yoga, or just generally, improving the spiritual side of life and taking on maybe a humanitarian approach to life can help you, calm your mind and become more calm, more peaceful, and also more able to focus on, let's say, academic pursuits and not be so impulsive, of course. So this is pretty much what last but not least, one thing that I was realizing that I forgot is the 12th house is hidden affairs, and it's also, bedroom pleasures, quote unquote. So Mars aspecting this house can show that you might have really transformative affairs, really intense affairs, and you might have a tendency towards developing secret affairs, romantic affairs, sexual affairs, and so on. So that's something you might want to take into account. But again, I do remind you one last time that a lot of this really depends on particular placements, and I will be getting into more of a detailed analysis in these future videos where I'm going to go through Mars in the 5th house for all ascendants, but even more still, a lot will depend on very many variables within the horoscope. So that's always something you should be taking into account. All right, so thank you for listening. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you have, don't forget to like, subscribe, click on the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, comment in the comment section with any feedback you would like to give, ideas maybe for future topics that you would want me to cover, and anything generally that you would like to share. Just keep it civilized, of course. And also, last but not least, if you would like to get a private reading, you can email me at the email address in the video description. And if you're interested in tarot, check out the link in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. Maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, so thank you very much for listening.